Hello, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap.
Oh, straight rhythm!
Bank, take advantage of it.
Oh, stand and applaud!
It's a stupid question.
It's not!
I have far greater expectations of you than that.
Oh, yes! He's gone all the way!
Now, he's popular, he's a great leader, he's the mentality of this football team.
Oh, and another one from Cleary!
Well, it doesn't get much better, does it?
Absolutely outstanding, and the finish is just as good!
It's rugby league, isn't it?
Hello, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap of Round 11. There is a lot to dissect after another action-packed weekend with the man himself, Peter Sterling. There's a bit going on.
Where do we start? Next weekend, a number of players missing from their respective teams and a number lighter in the pocket as well.
I'd love to be the treasurer who's holding the money for all these fines.
Well, look, it'll get through. Some players are obviously struggling more than others with the new interpretation or the new adjudication, and they just have to get the target down. And look, I did like the fact that there was a little bit more discretion from the officials in the middle, and that's why we're seeing players on report and fined, maybe more so than we saw in week one of the crackdown.
Certainly on Sunday, there seemed to be a bit more common sense applied.
Yes, yeah, but
Saturday night at the SCG, you wouldn't say that was particularly sensible.
We're talking about Victor to a large degree, and Victor let the emotion get the better of him. So, Trent Robinson, I was waiting to hear what he'd have to say in the post-match press conference, and he said, look, I don't have dumb players, they just have to sort it out, and Victor, he overcooked himself.
I occasionally ask you for a headline of the week. I'm going to do it this week. 50 is the new 30. Not rugby league, golf.
Oh.
Phil Mickelson.
Phil Mickelson.
And you'll have to allow us to indulge ourselves because we're both keen golf enthusiasts. He's won the USPGA at the age of 50, the oldest major winner ever.
So how many years older than the last?
4 years.
4 years, right.
Yeah.
So there is hope for me yet. And maybe it might just be that my poor game is the fact that maybe I'm actually a left-hander and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm going out this afternoon, I'm going to hit some balls left-handed.
Imagine if you start flushing
Bang,
them.
straight down the
Yes,
middle.
well, man, you and he drive at 330 yards each, so you've got something in common there.
I drive at 330 yards, but it's 3 woods to get that far.
Yes, indeed. The sad story at the weekend, and it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge the passing of the great Bob Fulton, one of the inaugural immortals of rugby league. Undoubtedly one of the game's greatest ever players, and so sad to hear of his passing at the age of 74 after a long battle with cancer and a secret battle as well, Pete. I think, like everyone, when I heard the news yesterday, I was incredibly shocked. I'm sure you were the same as well.
Very much so. It wasn't particularly common knowledge around the rugby league fraternity as to just how unwell that he had been. And one of the most influential figures our game really has ever seen when you consider on all levels. As a player, as you point out, one of the 4 inaugural immortals. As a coach, great success there, club level all the way through to the national coach. And as an administrator at the Manly Club, they wouldn't be in the position that they are today, and they've gone through some rocky times if he hadn't have been there at the helm in some shape or form, helping out. I didn't have a lot to do with Bob, even though we'd been around the game a lot together. I started playing basically just after he retired, so I never got to play against him. And then when it came to representative teams, he coached club level against sides I played in, but representative teams, I'd retired by then as well. So we didn't have a lot of interaction. Played a few games of golf with him in the company of one P. Vorton. But what I will say is that when I was growing up, I was the staunchest Manly supporter that had ever lived. Right. I struggled to go to school on a Monday if they got beaten on the weekend. Fortunately, my education didn't suffer that much because they did win a lot of games back then. I actually did a modern history assignment on Bob Fulton. So that was how much of a favourite player he was when I was a young person coming through. And yeah, like everybody else, we send our condolences to the family, and it was a shock especially I'm driving out to watch Manly play Para when the news came through. It certainly wasn't the name I was expecting when they said breaking news when it comes to rugby league, the passing of one of our greats. Yeah,
very, very sad. And we send out, as Peter says, condolences to the family and his many friends within the game. I had to laugh at this yesterday, though. There was a bit of Bob Fulton about this, but Parramatta were the ones that were trying to pull the short straw. Ruben Garrick was lining up a conversion right on half-time. So 16-6 to go to 18-6. He's having a good look at it, and just as Ruben
Well, look, watch the clock. 39:58 now. They're blowing time off.
Yeah.
And then as he moves in, obviously time on is blown, and the timekeeper's done what he's supposed to do.
Pete, please. This is one of the great stitch-ups.
Well, at least
the timekeeper has dead set taken the mickey.
Well, he was taking too long to kick it anyway.
Why don't they start the clock again?
Well, because the referee signalled time back on.
And the siren, blows
the
after
good thing
40
it didn't put him
seconds.
off at all. There was no okay, there might have been a little bit of reaction from him.
Yes.
Well, it didn't help.
No, it didn't, because the performance of Manly was one of the best performances of the season, and I'm assuming the passing of Bob Fulton was one of the driving factors in it. 28 points to 6, Pete. Totally dominant from the outset, right throughout. They had a player in the sin bin there for a period, and they actually scored a try and held Parramatta triless in that 10-minute window. And Josh Schuster, a player that Bob Fulton identified and signed to the club, was one of Manly's stars at Bankwest yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it was a really complete performance from Manly. Completely one on their merits. Everybody contributed, and Josh Schuster, who was moved, once Cade Cust had pulled out of the squad, they moved Josh Schuster to the 5/8 position, and it might be a decision that Des Hasler has to make when Kieran Foran returns, because they've got Curtis Sirinen to come into the back row. Their forwards are playing some great football. A lot of young, big men up there doing a great job and setting it up for their outside players who really capitalise. But you can see here from the footage just the way that Josh Schuster straightened play up.
Yeah.
Was involved in all their tries, and if you have a look at where the tries came, all down that side. Every point in regards to 4-pointers came down that left-hand side, going at the Parramatta right side defence, and Schuster was the man who threw the crucial passes to expose space down that side. He's an unusual body, I suppose, with all due respect. He looks more like a back rower, but he plays like a 5/8. So it's when Kieran Foran comes back, it'll be interesting to see which way Des Hasler goes. But he's certainly earmarked, I would imagine, down the track. I think maybe the 6 might be his, where there was some conjecture as to what position he is best suited to.
Well, they've got to fit Kieran Foran back into the puzzle there somewhere.
That's
I'm
the decision.
wondering whether Josh Schuster might be the sort of throwback to the old lock forward, the old traditional ball-playing lock.
Well, you considered that the influence that Glenn Stewart had at that club in golden times for them. There's some similarities there, just in the build, but some silky ball skills and a real football intellect. It's a matter of getting the right players in the right spots. Schuster, still a little bit confused as to where he was, but he clearly showed that he can play 5/8 if that's the path they go down, or if they need him to deputise there for whatever period.
Just to emphasise the magnitude of Manly's form reversal in the last 6 weeks, we've put together a competition ladder. This is how it would look if it was only the last 6 weeks. Penrith first, Melbourne second, Manly a third.
And if
5-1.
Well, they won one of their first 5 games.
Yeah.
Now they've won 5 of their next 6. So it's been a remarkable turnaround. And yes, it coincides with the return of Tom Trbojevic, who came back in round 6. But everybody is playing some great football there. And if you have a look at the differential, 208 points they have scored to 78 against.
Yeah.
So a differential of 130 in that period of time. That's incredible.
How can a fullback change the defensive performance of a team to the extent that Tom has?
Well, it's the most important defending player out there is the guy who's directing everybody to where to go. So that's your fullback.
Yeah.
And he's non-stop. The thing I loved about Tom Trbojevic, I've never seen this before, but when Parramatta made a break and young Paseka didn't come across, Tom Trbojevic balled him out. He was vocal and very, very strong about telling him to work harder.
Yep.
Never seen that side of him before. And that's obviously what they're getting in some degree from behind as to where players need to be in the defensive line. He's not scared to bark at them. But it was a remarkable little bit of footage that we picked up. It starts in the dressing shed as well. I've said this to you before. When players look around and see a guy like Tom Trbojevic getting changed, you get confident. Then when you go out there and everybody just slots into their positions, because once you've got your main man in the structure, everybody falls into the structure around that. And so he's had an unbelievable every time he touched the football in this game, you could feel a sense of excitement and that something was about to happen. And on most occasions, it either did or nearly did.
Yeah. A few other notables on that ladder. Cowboys are 5th over the last 6 weeks. Roosters have slid to 7th, albeit on the back of a lot of injuries and absentees.
Broncos.
The Broncos are in 10th. They're ahead of
6 other
the
clubs.
Titans, the Knights, the Dragons, and the Raiders are second last.
With a negative differential of 71.
Yeah.
They've scored 104 and conceded 171. It's been you don't know what the season is going to look like in the first 4 to 6 weeks of a competition, do you? You know, we keep saying that things change. Everybody will lose a game by the 6th round. Well, Penrith have defied that. But the turnaround from the Cowboys and Manly have been quite remarkable because they look like they were struggling, losing the first month. It was just a write-off for both the clubs. But they've turned that around, and with the closeness of that competition, all of a sudden, I think the Seagulls now sit maybe 6th on the competition ladder. Remarkable.
Indeed. Before we move on, we've got a lot else to talk about. Comment on the Eels yesterday?
Effort was there. I just thought they were outplayed, and again, they didn't defend well on their right side, and that needs to be addressed. I think Brad Arthur's got a decision to make down the track as well. Murata Niokore, I know he's a back rower, but he did a fantastic job in the centres. I'm wondering whether he is an option down the track if things don't get better there. I thought Reid Marnie was outstanding, but outside of that, I just thought that at times they were bereft of ideas, but it basically came back. Manly didn't allow them to play particularly well because they were just insistent with their defence.
Are you concerned about the former Blake Ferguson?
I'm concerned about that right side. I know Blake's only just come back recently, but there's still a disconnect there. You know, young Jacob Arthur, second game was a tough afternoon for him as well, and he's part of that defensive structure. But it was just concerning the amount of times that they exposed that side of the field. As I say, all the tries came that side, and others could have come.
Warriors 30, Tigers 26. What a good game of footy this is. If you're a Tigers fan, you've been ripping your hair out all weekend. You've turned up to work on Monday and you're bald. The boss
Nothing wrong with that.
No, of course not. And you're not even a Tigers fan. How they didn't win this, I will never know.
Well,
They had a player advantage for the last 20 minutes of the game, and the Warriors came back to beat them.
Yeah, and they got away to the great start too. Luke Garner scored early.
Yeah.
If you're Michael Maguire...
Who's also got no hair.
Well, exactly, and it didn't grow anymore over the last couple of days. Look, I'll go the other way. The Warriors hung in really well when they had to, and I suppose let's talk about the highlight of this game, which was young Reece Walsh, who Roger Tuivasa-Sheck put his hand up and say, look, coach, I'll play on the wing. This is the young bloke who's coming in. I don't think we'll see it every week, but what I really loved about the performance, he throws a pass there that is almost intercepted by Tommy Talau. Now, soon after, he throws that pass. For a young playmaker, if you throw an intercept or one that is nearly intercepted, it is so easy to get conservative straight away because a playmaker, there's nothing worse really that can happen if you throw a pass and you see the opposition streak away 90 metres to score at the other end. It's almost the audacity of that to do it moments later beggars belief, but it's just confidence in his ability. And he had a fantastic all-round game against the Tigers side who showed some really nice touches. I thought Luke Garner was very, very good. I think the combination of Brooks, Mbai at 5'8" and Adam Dewey again, looked promising. I think that's the way that they'll stay for certainly weeks to come and maybe for the rest of the season. If I'm the Brisbane Broncos, I just look at this and I'm shaking my head as to how this young man Walsh got away from us.
I can explain a bit of that because I learnt at the weekend he wasn't in their top 30 squad. He was on a development contract, which is essentially peanuts compared to what he's being paid now. So the Warriors came along and offered him a place inside the top 30, and along with that goes more money and opportunity, and he took it.
Yeah,
it's hard to believe that a player of that talent isn't in the top 30 at the Broncos.
You've got to have seen that, and you've got to accommodate the fact that, yes, that offer might come, but you've got to make it completely unattractive for him to leave and basically point out that, yes, you are integral to our ongoing plans because, he's clearly got class. I said that over the weekend on the Sunday Footy Show, and I don't like making these kind of references, but he was Ponga-like in some of his play. When Kalen came into the top grade, especially down the left side, we saw those kind of things. He's like a jackrabbit. He almost jumped out of a tackle there during the course of this game. I do think they will manage him physically, and that will be important. I don't think he's their fullback every week. I think that I'll swap around. They might even bring him off the bench at times.
I think he had 3 games off the bench before he started on the weekend.
Use him in different ways, despite the fact that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has said, look, I'm happy to play on the wing. You've got to keep Roger in the game as well. You want to see as much of him as you can, and apart from when he set up the Jack Murchie try, we didn't see as much involvement from Roger Tuivasa-Sheck because he was playing in a different position. You can't lose that influence and effect as well. So
you
a little bit of
Roger to 5'8".
Juggling it. Well, there are all different options that you can use. But the highlight of this game was Walsh. The Tigers would be disappointed. Another one got away from them. There are some good signs there. And some good signs for the Warriors, who's got some really nice young players coming through outside of Reece White. I like Harris DeVita. I think he's got plenty to offer. Rocco Berry was seen in recent weeks. They extended the contract of Adam Pompey. Eli Katoa, who's a good young forward who's still learning the game, came across from Rugby Union, hasn't played much at all. So, they're making real advancements with the depth of their squad, but young locals that are coming through and getting their opportunity. The other thing, just quickly on the weekend, it was the first weekend that you were allowed to play players outside of your top 30 in the NRL, and we saw some great young talent that were given a chance to play NRL, which they haven't had previously because they weren't in that top 30. Some great young talent coming through at a lot of different clubs.
I know he's not young, but Tohu Harris was phenomenal.
Yeah, he's the key to them. He provides so much experience and leadership.
SCG, 5:30 Saturday. Says here could be the upset of the season. Could be. It's the upset of the millennium. Broncos 34, Roosters 16. How did this happen?
I think they were $10 in a 2-horse race.
Wow.
Well, I've got to say that they started the game with intention. I thought Matt Lodge, Payne Haas, Pangai Jr. and co really put it to the Roosters, and it kind of flustered them a little bit. So they set the right platform. Matt Lodge, I thought, was absolutely outstanding in the opening exchanges, and they tried to make it personal. And if you're going in against the Roosters and you want to make something personal, you're going at Waria Hargreaves, and I thought they did that really successfully. Great platform set, and then the rest of the side rallied around that. And obviously the Roosters didn't handle it emotionally as well as we would have expected. And again, I listened to Trent Robinson after this game, and that's what disappointed him, that the way they put their game together just wasn't Rooster-like. But take nothing away from the Broncos. There'd be so much talk out of this game about the fact that they played 60 minutes with just 12 players. Well, that was self-inflicted. Not having Victor Radley out there is profound for them, because when you've got young playmakers, his role coming in and helping out in that area is so important. And we saw it when he was sin-binned the first time. Before he came back on, there were passes going astray, out in front of players, missing the mark. Have a look at these. It's a mess. As soon as he came back onto the paddock, all of a sudden, he slots in like this. He's involved in 3 plays, and straight away there was just a smoothness about their play with the football. And it was literally because he was back in the fold, going to the line, setting up his outside support players. Suwali gets a touch there, and they just looked better with him there. But to have him missing for an hour, it certainly inhibited what they could do. But again, I'm taking nothing away from what we saw from the Broncos. Congratulations to them. I think that their 3rd win of the season.
What about Albert Kelly?
He was one of the greatest stories to come out of this as well. I'd watched him play in the English Super League, and he'd done well over there. He'd actually been at my old club, Hull FC, so I watched him closely. But I thought the NRL had passed Albert. But he came out, kicked a 40-20 at a key stage, looked strong defensively, looked really fit. Combined with Tyson Gamble really well. That was one out when Kevin Walters named Albert Kelly. I thought, well, you're plucking at straws, with all due respect. Well, it was justified. He was one of their really good performers. I think Gamble is missing this weekend, so there's no doubt Kelly will be there and need to be significant performance also.
I wonder when Katoni Staggs is back. He's not far away. I wonder if he'll slot in there. Suspension to Radley, 4 to 6. Angus Crichton, a couple, both out of Origin. Huge for New South Wales. I want to talk a bit more about Origin later, but the Blues are a bit skinny for back rowers now.
Well, I don't know.
Edge back rowers in particular.
Well, edge back rowers. There are a lot of 13s,
Yeah.
but there is some versatility there. You know, there are some players who you can play on edge. You can play Cameron Murray on an edge.
Well, Murray's not available either.
Very comfortable. Well,
I think he's not going to, unless he plays this week, he won't be available.
Okay, well,
and it seems long odds he'll play this week.
well, we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. Isaiah Yeo, you know, look, there's a number of Jake Trebojevic. There are a lot of 13s that someone might have to be manufactured in that way. But maybe, you know, there's been talk of a Liam Martin, you know, possibly coming into the fore.
What about Mitch Barnett, left back row?
He's had a decent season in a side that's gone poorly, and he's got the size there. It's why Brad Fittler has said that he just writes his team down in pencil with an eraser on the end because things change so rapidly. It looked as though the back row was an area that we had an abundance of options. That has narrowed. But again...
Is Nathan Brown an edge candidate?
Well, look, I don't think... If you've got 13 on your back, I don't think that stops you from being able to play on an edge. You know, I think they know how to run lines, and I don't think it's that big of a transition to have to go from the middle to the edge. I think that, you know, the quality of these players, when we're talking Origin, I think you can do it and be successful at it. So I'm not too perturbed. There's still some real quality to choose from, even though a couple of players that you think would have been there are now out of contention.
All right, we'll give you some time to think about that. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's right. I want to talk about Joseph Suwali quickly, because there'd been so much hype leading up to this, and in the end, it was kind of overshadowed by everything that went around him. So a rather low-key entrance into the NRL for young Joseph Suwali, but you know, I think you had to like what you saw. Defensively, he looked good, and straight away you're looking at physically how he's going to handle it. There were glimpses there of what he might be able to provide, because he's certainly athletic. Made a couple of surges at times, which there's one of them there that looks promising. So it's a very, very different debut to what we expected in regards to the highlight of this game. He kind of got lost in what was happening around him, but I thought it was a nice introduction to the top grade, and I think it will be the first of many that he does play.
No doubt. Sharks 13, Dragons 12, Friday night football here on 9. Talk about a bomb. The Dragons. How did they lose? Wow. They had them on toast.
They did, and this was a derby that went into Golden Point, and it had that many turning points and momentum changes, which were quite remarkable. The Dragons went in this with so many players missing. So from that point of view, they made a real contest of it. They've lost a lot of players out of this as well. Excuse me. But the Sharks, whose confidence was down, were able to get the job done. And I think, you know, the best player in the field to me, and it made such a difference, was Will Kennedy. He's had a great season for Cronulla this year and getting better and better. I think he's getting more confident. And this was a huge play at the hour mark. They're 4 down, gets knocked back to Kennedy, and he gets it into the in-goal area under pressure, forces the restart, and then only a minute and a half later, he takes advantage of his own good work by scoring the try to get the next one. And the next try at that time was crucial to the outcome. So I thought Will Kennedy was outstanding. I couldn't understand the Dragons in Golden Point actually ran on the last tackle down a short side, which didn't seem to be the best play. Chad Townsend had a couple of attempted field goals charged down before he finally nailed it. If I'm Anthony Griffin, I know that his team is absolutely gassed after 83 and a half minutes, but the lack of effort to get to Chad Townsend at that time, after you've endured what you've done for so long, you've got to find something. And if we go back and have another look at it if we can, the pass from dummy half, he actually has to change direction.
Well, they're sliding on their line. They're not even coming forward.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't even a quick play the ball or a quick pass out of dummy half to Chad Townsend, who's 15 metres out in front of goal. You know that it's coming. They had to be in his face. I think that would disappoint, despite the effort they went in up to that, to put so much effort in and then to have none, and basically present the opposition with the winning point. I thought was unbelievably disappointing on behalf of the Dragons.
A bit worried about the Dragons now with such a big injury and suspension toll. I think are they looking at losing players out of this game?
Josh Kerr's out this week.
Yeah.
Matt Duffy still on the sidelines.
It's hard.
So yeah, they're really scraping the barrel in regards to the depth to put a 17 out this week.
Freezing cold conditions Saturday night down in Canberra. Raiders led 10-0. I tipped Canberra this week.
So
I thought
your fault, Ricky.
This is it.
Oh,
I've got my upset at 10-0.
10-0,
I'm curling my mo.
You're patting yourself on the back.
34-10. Whew.
I don't know what's. I honestly, I listened to Ricky's press conference after the game. I think it went less than 2 minutes. He said it's not attitude. He said it's not a lot of things. I didn't hear what it is. I got no idea what's happened down there. I know there are key players missing. Unfortunate news that Klukstar will miss the majority of the season. They've got Josh Hodgson on the sideline. Jack Whiten didn't play in this game as well. They will come back soon. Papali'i. But there was still enough quality out there against a Melbourne Storm team. The spine in round one for the Melbourne Storm was Pappenhausen, Munster, Hughes, and Grant. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
So, no, for Smith.
Grant.
Well,
yeah,
Smith
both,
and Grant, exactly. Nico Hines, Chris Lewis, Cooper Johns, and Brandon Smith. Now, you take the 1, 6, 7 and 9 out of any team. How do you knock over a side 34 points to 10 after trailing by 10 and get the job done in such emphatic fashion? I loved the way that the Melbourne Storm, when they went 10 down, they had a lot of football. They don't get frustrated. They remain patient even when they're not quite hitting the mark. And then when they do, all of a sudden they just get on that roll, and the Canberra Raiders were unable to stop that. But if I'm Ricky Stewart, I don't know where the season's going. He keeps talking positive that there are no dramas down there, but I don't know where their game has gone. I don't know where their confidence has gone. This was a great opportunity against a Melbourne Storm side after leading 10-0 against a very much weakened Melbourne Storm side to get pumped by 24 and not score after you've opened with those 10 points early on. It's real danger signs.
You'll be able to elaborate more about this, but people talk about how Craig Bellamy picks players in his team to do a particular job. Now, Chris Lewis is a second rower.
Yep.
He played it on the left-hand side in Cameron Munster's role, and he did exactly what Cameron Munster does. Just runs the ball.
He was tremendous, and again, Craig said that they don't worry about who's missing. They're only concerned about who they've got available and who's playing. And this young man would have been told to keep things very simple at 5'8". He did better than that. Now, there were some real class touches in his game, and it's just an amazing ability they have south of the border to just bring players up to play a role, and everybody knows what that role is, so they just kind of fit into the machine that just keeps ticking over, and Chris Lewis was a perfect example of it again on the weekend.
All right, other results from the weekend. Titans 30, Bulldogs 20. They were game Canterbury, but just couldn't quite get the job done there against the Gold Coast. Cowboys 36 over Newcastle 20. You reckon there's problems with some of the other teams. The Knights, they've got real issues. And at Dubbo, a brilliant afternoon for the locals, particularly when you consider what Isaiah Yeo and Matt Burton did. 56-12 against South Sydney. 28 points from Nathan Cleary. That's back-to-back weeks. He scored 28 points. There's a bit to talk about out of this Panthers game. Well, firstly, Souths have now conceded 50 points twice in the last month.
Yeah. And really only Cameron Murray missing because obviously Campbell Graham and Latrell Mitchell were back for this one. I thought there'd be little in this game. A wonderful occasion out there. Would have been a great atmosphere to play in with the country crowd. But the Panthers, it was just... And I'm wondering who it says more about, whether it says more about the Panthers or South. I'm thinking probably both.
Penrith had Edwards out and Leota out.
Yeah, exactly. Are this Penrith side... Are they capable of going through a competition undefeated? I never ever thought I'd say that. I think only 4 teams have done it. We go back to in the 1950s when it last happened. But they are a juggernaut, and if they can keep their team healthy and the roster deep into the season, close to their best, then I don't know where. Obviously Melbourne have got great credentials. I think the Roosters have still got plenty to offer. I thought South were one of those teams, but
on the back of that defensive effort the last month, Pete, with 2 scores of 50 conceded, do you think can Wayne Bennett fix this? I mean, this is dire now.
Well, it'll take some great coaching, and I'm sure that he expected a flat spot in their season. I don't think he would have expected it to be this bad. They started off great. I thought I was so impressed with them in the early rounds, 4 to 6 rounds, but then they did plateau off. But to have 50 pumped on you 2 weeks in a row, that's a really bad sign. As I say, what does it say about them, or what does it say about the Panthers? Are they that dominant in regards to the chasers? They might just be this special team that are just going to continue to roll on and cope with everything. So you mentioned Matt Burton.
Matt Burton, 3 tries. Now, the only thing that will stop Penrith, could potentially stop this run, is Origin. Cleary will be there. Yep. You'd have to say Jerome Luai is going to be there now, given the way he played
I think
yesterday.
So. Yep.
I mean, Happy Coruscant's an outside chance.
Yeah, and Capewell might be missing in regards to the Queensland.
Of course,
side.
Liam Martin. So look, they're going to lose a fair chunk.
Mate, I threw Moses Leota in as a bolter. They've got a lot of guys in contention. Stephen Crichton was part of the squad last year.
Is Matt Burton going to be in a New South Wales jumper? Brad Fittler needs a number 14.
It's a good question. Pappenhausen's got the 14 if he's right to go.
He won't be back next week. I mean, they're not going to pick him on the back of 10 minutes of football in 7 weeks.
He's in the conversation, Matt Burton. And this is for a young man who wasn't really a part of the Panthers 17 early on, got an opportunity through some injury, comes in a position that we didn't really expect him to make a mark in, centre 3/4. But if you do pick him as a utility player, you've got everywhere covered. He can play anywhere in the back line, and he plays like a back rower as well.
And he can play dummy half?
He's in the conversation, I would think, because he's a footballer. And he was always going to play Origin. He's an Origin player. I think we all saw that early on. I don't think we're being wise after the event there. But it might come a lot earlier than we expected when he's not... Well, he has established himself as a regular first grader. Now I don't think he'll be removed from this Penrith starting team.
On form, he's the best centre in the comp.
Well, when you're looking at a utility player, then he's got that really well covered.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Sterlo's question of the week. If you'd like to submit a question for the great man himself to answer, underneath here in the comments section. This one from Ronan Rogers. Sterlo, in the last 40 years, which is the best club team you have seen in any season? Broncos, Eels, Raiders, Storm, or other?
For me, it's always been the 74-75 Eastern Suburbs team.
Right.
Under Jack Gibson. Maybe because it was my formative years, like I was 14, 15 years of age, so I was totally enamoured by rugby league at that time. And the Roosters, if you have a look through that side there were a couple of changes in 74 through to 75, but the nucleus of the team was still there. Johnny Pearce, Johnny Mays were in the halves, Mark Harris, Bill Mullins, big outside backs. One of the most elegant centre 3/4 ever to play the game, Johnny Brass, was in the centres. And then up front, Arthur Beetson was the foundation stone, Elwyn Walters, Ronnie Coote, Barry Riley. So it was just this great football team. One year they had Russell Fairfax at fullback in the grand final, Ian Schubert another year. If you go back and have a look, in those 2 seasons, they played 22 games. I think they won 20 in one season and 19 in the next season.
Amazing. Against
quality opposition. So they were superbly coached and just had this great football team. So for me, looking through history, there have been some magnificent teams in every decade. But I don't think I've seen a better side than the 74-75 Eastern Suburbs Roosters.
A couple of those other teams that Ronan mentioned, Raiders... I went back and grabbed the Raiders team of 94.
The 90s, yep.
Mullins, Nagus, Meninga, Wiki, Nandruku, Daly Stewart, Pongia, Steve Walters, Paul Osborne, David Furner, Jason Croker, Bradley Clyde.
Yep.
And the Brisbane Broncos team of 93. O'Neill, Hancock, Renoff, Johns, Kahn, Walters, Langer, Lazarus, Kerrod Walters, Mark Hone, Trevor Gilmeister, Alan Cairn, Terry Madison. Then the bench, G. Plath, Peter Ryan and Gavin Allen.
Yeah, pretty fair
Handy
sides.
sides.
Well, they are. And again, if everybody's got their own opinion.
Well, it's sentiment, isn't it?
And again, I'm probably thinking maybe a little bit of nostalgia for me because, as I say, as a mid-teen, I was just totally enraptured by the game and the Roosters there. They were demigods. Arthur Beetson and those kind of players. They were on. It was like heaven watching them every week type thing. And I wasn't a Roosters fan. I was a Manly fan. So, but in answer to the question,
there you go.
74-75, but the great thing is that we all have our own opinion as to the best side that you've seen.
All right, that's Sterlo's wrap for this week. We have covered everything. We've even covered golf. Any questions for Sterlo underneath here, and we will talk to you next week.
I like that one. Thank you.